It is chapter 5, working of constitutions. It's an overview that democracy is not just about people electing the rulers. In a democracy, the rulers has to follow the some rules and procedures. They have to do work within institutions. This chapter is about the working of such institution in democracy. We try to understand this by looking in a manner in which major decisions are taken and implemented in our country. We also look at how disputes regarding these decisions are resolved. In this process, we come across the institution to play a key role. You may have already read something about these institutions in earlier classes. We shall quickly summarize those and move on the asking the larger questions. In the case of each institution, we ask what does this institution do? How is the institution connected to other institutions? What makes its functioning the more or less democratic? The basic objective here is to understand how all the institutions together carry on the work of government. Sometimes we compare these with similar institutions in other democracies. In this chapter, we will take our examples from the working of national level government, called central government, union government, and can think of discuss and or just government of India. And while reading the chapter, you can think of and discuss examples for the working of the government in your state. How is a major policy decision taken? A government order. On August 13, 1990, a government of India issued an order. It was called the office memorandum. It is called an office memorandum. Like in all government orders, it has a number and it's owned by that OM number and estimated at STT rated at whatever it is, and joint secretary and officer in the Department of Personnel and Training in the Ministry of Personnel and Public Grievances Pension signed the order. It was quite short, barely one page. It looked like an ordinary circular of a notice that you may have seen in the school. The governments issued hundreds of orders every day or different matters, but this one was very important, become a source of controversy of several years. Let us see how decision was taken, what happened. So this is a picture of real one. Here it is of reservation. 27% of vacancies of civil posts and services under the government of India shall be reserved for SEBC. Reservation for backward classes in civil posts and services under the government of India regarding. So the order announced a major policy decision. It is said that the 27% of the vacancies in civil posts and services under the government of India are reserved for the socially and economy backward classes. SEBC, socially and economy backward classes. SEBC is another name of all those people who belong to the castes that are considered backward by the government. The benefit of job reservations was till then available, now only for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes. Now a new third category called SEBC was introduced. Only persons who belong to the backward caste were eligible for this quota. 27% jobs. Other couldn't compete for these jobs. The decision makers who decide to issue the memorandum, clearly such a big decision couldn't have taken by the person who signed that document. The officer was merely implementing the instructions given by the Minister of Personnel, Public Grievances, Pensions, of which department was a part. We can guess that such a major decision would have involved other major functionaries in our government, our country. You may already heard. Read in the previous chapter classes also read about. Let us go to the you covered them. President is the head of the state and is the highest formal authority of the country. Prime Minister is the head of the government. President is the head of the state and is the highest formal authority in the country. Prime Minister is the head of the government and actually exercises all government powers, and he takes most of the decisions of the cabinet meeting. Parliament consists of the two houses, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. The Prime Minister must have the support of a majority of Lok Sabha members. So, were all these people involved in this decision regarding of the office memorandum? Let us find out. This office memorandum was the culmination of a long chain of events. The government of India had appointed a second backward class commission 1979. It was headed by BP Mandal, hence it was popularly called the Mandal Commission. It was asked to determine the criteria to identify the socially educationally backward classes in India and recommend steps to be taken for their advancement. The commission gave its report in 1980 and made many recommendations. One of these was 27% of government jobs be reserved for socially and economically backward classes. The report and the recommendations were discussed in the parliament for several years. Many parliaments and parties kept demanding the implementations. For several years, many parliamentarians and parties kept demanding the implementation of Commission's current recommendation. Then came the Lok Sabha election in 1989. In its election manifesto, the Janata Dal promises that if voted to power, it would implement the Mandal Commission report. The Janata Dal did the government after this election. It formed government after this election, and its leader VP Singh, because the Prime Minister became the Prime Minister, and several developments took place after that. Then after that, President of India in his address to the Parliament announced the intention of government to implement the recommendation of Mandal Commission. On 6th August 1990, Union Cabinet took a formal decision to implement the recommendations. Next day, Prime Minister VP Singh informed the parliament about this decision through a statement in both houses of parliament. The decision of the cabinet was sent to the Department of Personnel and Training. The senior officers of the department drafted an order in line with the cabinet decision and took the minister's approval. An officer signed the order on behalf of the union government. This was the OM number, or this was born 13 August 1990. For the next few months, this was the mostly hotly debated issue in the country. Newspapers and magazines were full of different views and opinions on this issue. It led to the widespread protests. And counter-protests, some of which were violent. People reached strongly because this decision affected thousands of job opportunities. Some felt that existence of inequalities among people of different castes in India. Different castes of India, and that necessitated job reservations की जरूरत दिखाई. They felt that this would have give a fair opportunity to those communities who so far had not adequately been represented in government employment. Others felt that this was unfair as it would deny equality of opportunity for those who did not belong to backward communities. They would be denied jobs even though they could be more qualified. Some felt that this would perpetuate caste feeling among people and hamper national unity. In this chapter, we wouldn't discuss that whether the decision was good or not. We only take this example to understand that how major decisions are taken and implemented in the country. Who resolved this dispute? The Supreme Court and the High Courts in India settled disputes arising out of government decisions. Some persons associations opposed to this order filed a number of cases in the courts. They appealed to the courts to declare the order invalid and stop its implementation. The Supreme Court of India bunched all these cases together. This case was known as the Indra Shawni and other versus Union of India case. I'm once again repeating, it's a very important case. Indra Shawni others versus India Shawni and others versus Union of India case. 11 judges of Supreme Court heard arguments of both sides. By a majority, the Supreme Court judges of 1992 declared that this audit of the government of India was valid, and at the same time, the Supreme Court asked the government to modify its original order. It said that well-to-do persons among the backward classes should be excluded from getting the benefit of reservation. Accordingly, the Department of Personnel and Training issued another office memorandum on September 8, 1993. The dispute thus came and policy has been followed since then. Now, need for political institution. We have seen the example of how the government works. Governing a country involves various such activities. For example, the government is responsible for ensuring security to its citizens, providing facilities for education, health to all. It collects taxes, spends the money, thus pays to the administration, defense, and development programs. It formulates and implements several welfare schemes. Some persons have to take decisions on how to avoid the tax activities. Others have to implement these decisions. If disputes arise in these decisions or in their implementation, then there should be someone to determine what is right or what is wrong. It is important that everyone should know who is responsible for doing what it is. It's all important that these activities keep taking place even if the persons in key positions change. So to attend to all these tasks, several arrangements are made in all modern democracies. Such arrangements are called institutional. Democracy works well when these institutions perform functions assigned to them. The constitution of any country lays down basic rules of powers and functions of each institution. In the example above, we saw several such institutions at work. The Prime Minister and the Cabinet are the institutions that make all the important policy decisions. Once again, I am repeating that Prime Minister and the Cabinet are the institutions which make all the important policy decisions. The civil servants working together are responsible for taking steps to implement the minister's decisions. Supreme Court is an institution where disputes between citizens and the governments are finally settled. So can you think of some other institutions that are of the example? What is their role? Working with institution is not easy. Institutions involve rules and regulations. This can bind the hands of leaders. Institutions involve meetings, committees, and routines. This often leads to delays and complications. Therefore, dealing with institutions can be frustrating. One might feel that it much better than to have one person take all decisions without any rules, procedures, and meetings. But that is not the spirit of the democracy. Some of the delays and complications introduced by the institution are very useful. They provide an opportunity for a wider set of people to be consulted in any decisions. Institutions make it difficult to have a good decision taken very quickly, but they also make it equally difficult to rush through a bad decision, and that's why democratic government insists to institutions. The biggest institution of very important institution is the parliament. In the example of the office of memorandum, you do remember the role of the parliament. Perhaps not. That since the decision was not taken by the parliament, you might think that the parliament had no role in it. But let us go back to the story, see whether parliament figures in it. Let us recall the points made earlier, completing the following sentences. The report of the Mandal Commission was discussed. The president in the parliament, the president of India mentioned this is in his parliament speech. The prime minister made a memorandum for the parliament. The decision was not directly taken in the parliament, but parliamentary discussion on the report influenced and shaped by the decisions of the government. They brought pressure on the government to act. They brought pressure on the government to act on the Mandal recommendation. If the parliament was not in favor of the decision, the government couldn't have gone ahead with it. Can you guess why? Because recall what you read about the parliament in the earlier class. Try to imagine what the parliament could have done. It didn't approve. The parliament could have done if it did not approve of the cabinet decision. Once again, I'm reading this. Recall what you read about the parliament in the earlier class and try to imagine that what the parliament could have done if it did not approve of the cabinet decision. Why do we need a parliament? In all democracies, an assembly of elected representatives exercises supreme political authority on behalf of the people. Okay. In India, such as National Assembly of Elected Representatives, is called Parliament. In India, such as National Assembly of Elected Representatives is called Parliament. At the state level, is called Legislature or Legislative Assembly. The name may vary in different countries, but such an assembly exists in every democracy. It exercises political authority on behalf of the people in many ways. Parliament is the final authority for making laws in any country. Parliament is the final authority to making laws in any country. This task of lawmaking or legislation is so crucial that these assemblies are called legislatures. The task of lawmaking or legislation is so crucial about these assemblies are called legislatures. Legislatures. Parliaments all over the world can make new laws, change existing laws, or abolish existing laws, and make new ones to their place. Parliaments all over the world exercise some control over those who run the government. In some countries like India, this control is full, direct and full. Those who run the government can take decisions only so long as they enjoy support of the parliament. Parliament control all the money that governments have. In most countries, any the public money can be sent only when the parliament sanctions it. Parliament is the highest forum of discussion and debate on public issues and national policy in any country. Two houses of parliament. Since the parliament plays a central role in modern democracies and the most large countries divide the role and powers of the parliament into two powers, they are called the chambers of the house. One house is usually directly elected for the people, exercises a real power on the behalf of the people. Second house is usually elected indirectly and performs some special features. The most common work of the second house is to look after the interest of various states, regions, or federal units. In our country, the parliament consists of two houses. The two houses are known as the Council of States, Raj Sabha, and the House of the People, Lok Sabha. And the President of India is a part of parliament. Although she is not a member of either house, that's why all laws made in the houses come into force only after they receive the assent of the president. So you may have read about the Indian parliament in the earlier classes from the chapter 4 of to know how Lok Sabha election takes place. Let us recall some key differences between the composition of these two houses of parliament. What's the total number of members? Who elects the members? What's the length of term? And extra questions. Which of two houses is more powerful? It might appear that Raj Sabha is more powerful, for sometimes it's called the upper chamber and the Lok Sabha is the lower chamber. But this doesn't mean that Raj Sabha is more powerful than the Lok Sabha. This is just an old style of speaking and not the language used for our constitution. Our constitution does give the Raj Sabha some special powers over the states, but on most matters the Lok Sabha exercises supreme power. Let us see how. Any ordinary law needs to be passed by both the houses, but if there is a difference between the two houses, the final decision is taken in a joint session in which members of both the houses are together. Because of the larger number of members, the view of the Lok Sabha is likely to prevail in such a meeting. Lok Sabha exercises more powers and money matters. Once the Lok Sabha passes the budget of the government on any other money related law, the Raj Sabha cannot reject it. The Raj Sabha can only delay it for 14 days or suggest changes in it. The Lok Sabha may or may not accept these changes. Most importantly, the Lok Sabha controls the Council of Ministers. Only a person who enjoys the support of majority of members in the Lok Sabha can appointed the Prime Minister. And if the majority of the Lok Sabha members say that they have no confidence in the Council of Ministers, all the ministers including Prime Minister have to quit. The Raj Sabha does not have the power. This complete a day in the Lok Sabha. What happened that 11 o'clock there's a writing answers questions. There's so many types of sessions and session billing proposed exchange about discussion conducted. Now political executive. Do you remember the story of office memorandum which we started in chapter? Yes, we found in the person who signed document did not take a decision. He was only executing the policy decision taken by someone else. We noted the role of prime minister taking that decision, but we also know that he couldn't have taken the decision if he didn't have support of Lok Sabha. In that sense, he was only executing the wishes of the parliament. There are different levels of any government. We find functionaries who take day-to-day decisions but do not exercise supreme power on behalf of the people. All those functionaries are collectively known as executive. They are called executive because they are in charge of the execution of the policy of the government. Thus, when we talk about the government, we usually mean the executive, political and permanent executive. In a democratic country, what happens, the two categories make up the executive. One that is selected by the people for a specific period is called the political executive, and political leaders who take the big decisions fall in the category. In the second category, pupils are appointed for a long-term basis. This is called the permanent executive or civil services. For the civil services, as persons working in the civil services are called civil servants. They remain in the office even when the ruling party changes. These officers work under the political executive and assist them in carrying out the day-to-day administration. Can you recall role of political, non-political executive in the case of office memorandum? You might ask, why does the political executive have more power than the non-political executive? Why is the minister more powerful than the civil servant? The civil servant is usually more educated and has more expert knowledge of the subject. The advisors working in the finance ministry know more about economics more than the finance ministers. Sometimes the ministers may know very little about this ministry. Their ministry. So this could easily happen in the ministry like defense, industry, health, science and technology, mining, etc. Why should the minister have the final say to these matters? The reason is very simple, that in a democracy, the will of the people is supreme. The minister is elected by the people, and that is empowered by exercise that will of the people is there on their behalf. She is finally answerable to the people for all consequences of her decision. That's why the minister takes all the final decisions. The minister decides the overall framework and objective of which decisions and policy should be made. The minister is not expected to be expert in the matters of her ministry. The minister takes the advice of the experts on all technical matters, but very often that play before her more than one option, depending on what overall objective is the minister decides. Actually, this happens in any large organization. Those who understand the overall picture that take the most important decisions, not the experts. The experts can tell the route that someone with a large view decides the destination. In a democracy, elected ministers perform this role. Prime minister and council of ministers. Prime minister is the most important political institution in the country, and yet there is no direct election to the post of the prime minister. The president appoints the prime minister, but the president cannot appoint anyone like she likes. The president appoints the leader of the majority party of the coalition of the parties that commands a majority in the Lok Sabha as prime minister. In case of single party or alliance gets a majority, the president appoints a person most likely to secure a majority support. The prime minister does not have a fixed tenure. He continues in power so long as he remains in the order, remains the leader for the majority party or coalition. After the appointment of the minister, the president appoints other ministers on the advice of the prime minister. The ministers are usually from the party of the coalition that has the majority of Lok Sabha. The prime minister is free to choose members as long as they are members of parliament. Sometimes a person who is not a member of parliament can also become a minister, but such a person has also get elected to once a house of the permanent within 6 months of appointment as a minister. Council of ministers are the official names of the body that includes all the ministries. Usually 60 to 80 ministers of the different ranks. And cabinet ministers are usually top level leaders of the ruling party or parties who are in charge of major ministers. Usually the cabinet ministers meet to make decisions in the name of council of ministers, and cabinet is thus the inner ring of the council of ministers. It comprises about 20 ministers. Minister of state with independent charge are usually in charge of small ministries. They participate in the cabinet meetings only when specially invited. Ministers of state are attached and required to assist cabinet ministers. Since minister, it is not practical for all ministers to meet regularly and discuss everything in the seasons of cabinet meeting. That's why parliamentary democracies in most countries often known as the cabinet form of government. The ministers may have different views, opinions, but everyone has own up to every decision of the cabinet. No minister can openly criticize any decision of the government, even if about another ministry department. Even ministry has secretaries who are civil servants. The secretaries provide the necessary background information to the ministers to take decisions, and the cabinet is a team assisted by cabinet secretary. This includes many senior civil servants who try to coordinate the working of the different ministers. Power of the prime minister. The constitution does not say that very much about the powers of prime minister or the ministers of their relationship with each other. So, but as a head of the government, the prime minister has wide-ranging powers. He chairs cabinet meetings. He coordinates the work of different departments. His decisions are final in case disagreements arise between departments. He exercises general supervision of different ministers. All ministers work under the leadership. The prime minister distributes and redistributes work to the ministers. He also has the power to dismiss ministers. When the prime minister quits, the entire minister quits. If the cabinet is the most powerful institution in India, with the cabinet is the prime minister who is the most powerful, then the powers of the all prime minister. The powers of the prime minister is all the parliament on all the parliamentary democracies. of the world have increased so much in recent decades, and parliamentary democracies are more times seen as a prime ministerial form of government. As political parties have come to play a major role in politics, the Prime Minister controls the cabinet and the parliament through the party. The media also contributes to this trend to making politics election to as a competition between the top leaders of parties. In India too, we have seen such a tendency towards the concentration of powers in the hands of the Prime Minister. Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of India, exercised enormous authority because he had great influence over the public. Indira Gandhi was also a very powerful leader compared to her colleagues in the cabinet. Of course, the extent of a power widely wielded by a Prime Minister also depends on the personality of a person holding that position. However, in recent years, the rise of coalition politics has imposed certain constraints on the power of the Prime Minister, and the Prime Minister of a coalition government cannot take decisions as he likes. He also has to accommodate different groups and factions on his party and well as the long alliance partners. He also has to heal to the views and the positions of the coalition partners and other parties who all support survival of the government depends the president. While the Prime Minister is the head of the government, the president is the head of the state. In our political system, as the head of the state exercises only nominal powers. The president of India is like the Queen of Britain, whose function is to large extent ceremonial. The presidential president supervises the overall functioning of all the political institutions in the country so that they operate the harmony to achieve the objectives of the state. The president is not elected directly by the people. All the members of parliament, MPs, and members of the state legislative assemblies, MLAs, and elect her, and the candidate standing in the president's post has to got a majority of votes in the election. The ensures that the president can be seen to represent the entire nation. At the same time, the president can never claim the kind of direct popular mandate that the prime minister can. This ensures that she remains only a nominal executive. The same is true that of the powers of the president. If you casually read the constitution, you will think that there is nothing that she cannot do. All the government activities take place in the name of the president. All laws and major policy of decision of the government are issued in the name. All major departments are made in the name of president. This includes the appointment of the Chief Justice of India, judges of Supreme Court and the High Court of the states, governor of the states, selection of commissioners, ambassador of the other countries, etc. All international treaties and agreements are made in the name of president. The president is the supreme commander of the defense forces in India, but we should remember that the president exercises all these powers only on advice of the council of ministers. The president can ask the council of ministers to reconsider the advice, but if the same advice is given again, then she is bound to act according to it. Similarly, a bill passed by the parliament becomes a law only after the president gives an assent to it. If the president wants, she can delay this for some time and send it back to the parliament for reconsideration. But if the parliament passes the bill again, and she has to sign it. You may have also wondered, what does the president really do? Can she do anything or not at all? There is a very only one important thing, that she couldn't know her own appoint the prime minister. When a party or coalition of parties secures a clear majority of elections, the president has to appoint the leader of the majority party of the coalition that enjoys the majority supports of the Lok Sabha. So when the no party or coalition gets a majority in the Lok Sabha, then the president exercises her discretion in her opinion and can muster majority support the Lok Sabha. In such a case, the president can ask the newly appointed prime minister to prove majority support the Lok Sabha within a specific time. Presidential system. President all over the world are not always nominated executives like the president of India. In many countries of the world, the president is both the head of the state and the head of the government. The president of United States of America is the most well-known example for the kind of president. The US president is elected by the people, and he personally chooses and appoint all ministers. The lawmaking is still by the legislature called the Congress in the US, but the president can veto any law, and most importantly, the president does not need support of the majority of the members of the Congress, and neither the answerable to them. He has a fixed tenure of 4 years and complete even if the party does not have a majority in the Congress. This model is followed by the most of the countries of Latin America. Many of the ex-Soviet Union countries given the centrality of the president, the system of government. This system of government is called the presidential form of government. In countries like our follow the British model, the parliament is the supreme, and therefore system is called the parliamentary system of government. The judiciary. Let us return one final time to the story of office form memorandum. They started this at the prime. Let recall the story. It was imagine. Remember the story. Respective Supreme Court have a give verdict was accepted by everyone. Imagine what would happen in the following situation if there was nothing like a Supreme Court in the country. If there is a Supreme Court which has no power to judge actions of the government, even if it has the power, if no one trusted the Supreme Court to give a fair verdict, even if it gave a fair judgment, and those who appealed against the government or did not accept the judgment. And this is why an independent, powerful judiciary is considered essentially for democracy. All the courts are different levels in a country put together. It is called a judiciary. All Indian judiciary consists of a Supreme Court for entire nation. high courts of the state, district courts, and the courts at local level. India has an integrated judiciary. It means the Supreme Court controls the judicial administration in the country. Its decisions are binding on all the courts of the country. It can take up any dispute between citizens of the country, between citizens and government, between two or more state government, between governments and the union state level. It is the highest court of the appeal to civil and criminal cases. It can hear appeal against the decisions of the high court. Independence, the judiciary means that it's not under the control of the legislature, so executive. The judges do not act on the direction of the government on according to the wishes of the party in power. That's why all modern democracies have been courts of the independent in the legislature and executive. India has achieved this. Also, the judges of Supreme Court and the High Courts are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister and in the consultation of Chief Justice of India Supreme Court. In practice, it means that senior judges of Supreme Court select that the judges of Supreme Court and the High Court. This is a very little scope of interference of the political executive. The senior most judge of the Supreme Court is usually appointed Chief Justice. Once a person is appointed a judge on Supreme Court or High Court, it is nearly impossible to remove him or her from the position. It is a difficult removing the President of India. A judge can be removed only on a impeachment motion passed separately by 2/3 of members of two houses of parliament. It has never happened in the history of Indian democracy. The judiciary of India is also one of the most powerful in the world. The Supreme Court and the High Court have the powers to interpret the constitution of the country. They can declare invalid any law of legislature of the actions of the executive, whether it is at the union level, at the state level, and at the find such a law of action is against the constitution. Thus, they can determine the constitutional validities of a legislature or action of the executive of a country. When it is challenged before them, this is known as the judicial review. The Supreme Court of India has also ruled the core of the principles of the constitution cannot be changed by the parliament. The powers and the independence of Indian judiciary allow it to act as a guardian of fundamental rights. We shall see that the next chapters of citizens have a right to approach the court to seek the remedy in case of any violation of these rights. In recent years, courts have been given several judgments and directives to protect the public interest and human rights. Anyone can approach the courts if public interest is hurt by the actions of government. This is called the public interest litigation. The courts intervene to prevent the misuse of the government's power to, and they check malpractice on the part of the public officials. That the judiciary enjoys a high level of confidence among the people. How complete chapter is completed. Coalition government, the government which is made by the alliance of the two or more political parties. Executive is the body of person having authority to initiate the major rules, and the government is the set of institutions that have the power to make, implement, and interpret the laws to ensure. Judiciary is the institution which empowered by administrative judiciary and provide a mechanism for resolution of legal disputes. The legislature, the assembly of people's representative with the power to enact laws for a country. Office memorandum of communication issued by the appropriate authority for the policy decision of the government. Political institution, set of procedure or regulator conducting of the government in the political life of the country. Reservation, a polity that declares some positions of in the government, employment, and education institutions preserved for the particular people or community backward classes. State that the political association occupying a definite territory having an organized government possession of government foreign policies. Thank you so much. If you like my video, please like, comment, share, subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.